this particular song is responsible for half his lifetime earnings. Shane MacGowan was at his apex as a songwriter. They asked a lot of people, what is the best Christmas song ever? That was number one.
So, John, there is an idea out there that if you, as an artist, can write a Christmas hit, you are going to be set for life. And it comes from these reports that we see generally at this time of the year, which calculate these kind of eye-watering royalties that artists pay. But I'm wondering, and my question to you is, can we trust these figures? And the reason I ask is we contacted Marcia Farquhar, and she is the wife of Jem Finer in the Pogues. And she actually really changed the direction or had a big input into Fairy Tale of New York, but that's another story. Anyway, we asked Marcia, to give us a sense of how much they're making in royalties. And she said when herself and Jem look at these figures, their response is always, if only. Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting. And I'm wondering, have you any more information for us? Can we trust these figures?
It's very hard to trust them, Katie. I mean, it's regularly suggested that the Pogues, i.e. Jem and Shane MacGowan, are now Shane MacGowan's estate, make somewhere in the region of €500,000 in royalties per annum on that song alone. I always found it quite difficult to believe. Along with a lot of these figures. Now, I did ask Shane himself.
Oh, when?
A number of years ago, he did not want to go there. And in fact, I read a Guardian interview from way back when, and he also didn't want to go there about that either. He was happy to talk about the origins of the song. Famously, it was the producer at the time, Elvis Costello, that had a bet with him saying, I bet you can't write a Christmas song in summertime. And of course, he wrote a classic. The figures are very difficult to prove, partly because the rights organisations do not publish this kind of detail. However, about 10 years ago, the British equivalent said that Merry Christmas Everybody, the Slade song from 1973 that was top the chart that year and in 1989, pulled in more royalties than any other Christmas song in Britain. And it has regularly been suggested the two principal songwriters of that, including the frontman, the Noddy Holder, made something like €1 million per annum. He has never categorically said that is the amount that we made, but he has said that it continues to bring in very significant money. Again, how much of this do we trust? Hard to tell. There was a Channel 5 documentary in 2016 which attempted to answer this question. And again, it had Merry Christmas Everybody at the top. It had Fairy Tale of New York close to the top as well, pulling in the kind of money that Jem's wife is saying, if only. And again, in the public's imagination, there is this idea that if you write a song that's enormously popular, that it will do phenomenally well, because Nick Hornby wrote about this in About a Boy. It was made into a film with Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant plays this guy whose father wrote a Christmas song, and basically he can live a wonderful life of the gentleman who does nothing on the proceeds of it. So it's a roundabout way to answer your question, but it's hard to have a definitive answer.
But it does sound perhaps that popular culture is perpetuating an idea of it being this absolute cash cow, when perhaps it might be a little bit less than we think.
It might be a little bit less. I mean, Forbes, which is a pretty significant source for business information and business journalism, suggested that Mariah Carey had made something like $60 million in the lifetime of I Don't Want a Lot for Christmas. Which, I mean, I heard it twice already today.
Yes.
Just wandering from shop to shop trying to get some of the last bit of Christmas done before the big day tomorrow. And it's there and it's utterly ubiquitous. I have to say, it seems like an awful lot of money on the basis of one song.
Yeah. Do you like that song?
I do.
Yeah, I do think it's an absolute banger. I think it's in my favourites.
It is. And in some ways, it's the last time that a new Christmas song really transcended, where it has become part of the sort of landscape of great Christmas songs, ones that will probably be listened to in 1,000 years' time.
So do you think those days are over where, newer emerging artists can write something that goes into, into the Hall of Fame?
I think they are over, and I think they've been over for at least 30 years. There are loads of reasons for that.
Tell me some of them.
Well, I suppose one, the industry isn't what it was. People don't buy music like they did because streaming changed everything. And of course, people can't make the same kind of money that they did in the past. But the other thing as well is that there's something quite sort of hard to define about streaming. You know, you don't have that tangible quality of physical music. I remember when I was 9 years old, and Do They Know It's Christmas is released, and also Wham's Last Christmas. So what a year that was. And just having this single in my hands and pestering my parents to play it constantly. My father was driven demented by it. My mother loved it. Both of us had our hairbrushes out and we were singing along to it, you know. Those days are gone. They're so far gone. And people, and I probably shouldn't say this as a music critic, but it's true, people don't have the connection, the sort of hugely kind of life-altering connection that they had with music now, because there's so much to do. You know, there's no surprise that the last significant song to cross over, Mariah Carey in '94, predates the internet, or the internet's just about to start then. So suddenly you've got this attention is everywhere else, and it isn't as focused. Things like Top of the Pops are no more. People aren't as excited about the rundown of the charts. And then you had this period where X Factor was delivering the UK Christmas #1 every single year, usually with songs that weren't Christmas themed at all. And you had kind of protest songs against that did quite well, like Killing in the Name. Rage Against the Machine reached the top of the chart as well, which is about as unfestive as you can get. But the cumulative aspect of all of this is that we aren't as excited about Christmas songs as we were. I would argue that the kind of the glory years is about a dozen years between, say, 73 and 85. That's the period where they sell in enormous numbers. And yes, I think a lot of those artists, the people that wrote the songs, did very well out of them. And they're always there. And one final point I'd make about this as well is that before streaming, largely people were... It was quite expensive to be accumulating music. You know, it really was. It wasn't a tenner a month to listen to 100 million songs that are available on Spotify right now. So everything's atomized. Like, people can listen to whatever. And of course there was that bit of fun recently about Spotify and Wrapped, where they're talking about your listening age. And that's partly down to the fact that people are listening to everything and anything in the ways they really weren't before.
Taylor Swift did have a stab at a Christmas song, but it didn't really take off like Mariah Carey's did it?
Yeah, it did in 2019, a song called Christmas Tree Farm, which actually was about her own childhood in Pennsylvania, growing up on a Christmas tree farm. And unusually for Taylor Swift, it wasn't a global smash, because most of what she does is. Although it's interesting because I suppose post-pandemic, everything she touched turned to gold in a way that maybe it hadn't before that. So perhaps the timing was off.
I want to go back to something you said there about the writers doing particularly well. What is that split then in terms of royalties money?
Yeah, there's an extraordinary difference between somebody who writes these songs, or indeed any song, versus a performer who didn't write them. And a great example can be gleaned from Shakin' Stevens and his huge 1985 UK #1, Merry Christmas Everyone. It is utterly ubiquitous, but he, in a recent interview, said that he reckons he makes somewhere between £5,000 and £10,000 a year on this song, because he wasn't the writer. The writer must make multiples of that. Another great example is Liz Mitchell of Boney M. Boney M, we sometimes forget, one of the best-selling bands of the 1970s. And Mary's Boy Child for years was in the all-time top 10 singles in the UK. She reckoned, again, in a comparatively recent interview, that the royalties that she was getting from it were a fraction of 1%, because, again, she was not the writer. So often, like, the writer can be somebody, a backroom person that is never seen effectively, and they create these songs and they can make the money there. And I think there's a misunderstanding from a lot of people where they think, oh, here's the star, they must be coining it. But if they didn't write it, they're not.
So moving away from money, tell me, what are your favourite Christmas songs?
Oh God, there's so many. Well, do you know what? Let me throw a very recent one at you. It's actually from 2011, which in the scheme of things is comparatively new. And in a different era, this could have been an enormous song. And it's called When the Thames Froze. And it's from Smith and Burrows. This is Tom Smith of Editors and Andy Burrows of Razorlight. And they had an album called Funny Looking Angels. And it is the most gorgeous Christmas song. It's really sophisticated, beautifully done. But again, it's released at an era where people are not really looking for new material. But to go back to the classic stuff, I love The Waitress's Christmas Wrapping. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And because I'm a bit of an Elton John fanboy, Step Into Christmas always makes me kind of happy. And look, I'm going to throw a very obvious one in as well. Last Christmas. You know, I mean, the genius of George Michael. It's such a beautifully rendered pop song. A couple of years ago, the video, which is fabulous, was re-released in 4K high definition. It's so worth checking out. It just brings you back to that moment you first saw it, and you're kind of seeing it anew. It's like these people are right in front of you. I just love it. And let me throw another one. And we talked about Slade quite a bit here. But like, there is something, that kind of glam rock, the cheesiness, the fun of it. Merry Christmas, everybody. If it comes on the radio, I won't turn it off.
Yeah.
And there's a great story about Slade as well, where they played Dublin some years ago in the middle of summer, I believe. Not only did they play that song once, they actually played it twice.
No way.
Yeah, they played it twice due to popular demand, apparently. I think I would too. I suppose partly because some of these songs, if they're slightly off the constant rotation, when you revisit them, they can work really well. I would urge anybody who hasn't heard The Waitress's song, by the way, that I mentioned, to hear it, because it is that kind of new wave brilliance, that early 80s idea, and it's kind of clever. You also ask, sorry Katie, but just to throw in another terribly obvious one, but Fairy Tale of New York really is a great song.
Yeah.
It is spectacularly good. It stems from a period where Shane MacGowan was at his apex as a songwriter, and you know, it actually topped a UK chart recently. As you know, they asked a lot of people, what is the best Christmas song ever? That was number one.
So tell me, I know you're saying that the kind of golden age of Christmas songs is well past us, but if you were to write a Christmas song today, or have a stab at it, with a purely cynical kind of point of view, what would it be?
Well, I think it would require a globally famous artist to do it for a start.
Who are we thinking?
Well, let's think of Taylor Swift here, you know, because again, there is that kind of ubiquity of late about her music. But if she was to do it, she could probably take a leaf out of Mariah Carey's book in terms of making it sound as Christmassy as possible, putting in that kind of sleigh bell sound, making it immediately accessible with a cast iron chorus. You know, that almost feels nursery rhyme like in its simplicity.
Oh wow, you're really going here, John.
And if only I could pen some of these songs myself, I'd be very happy indeed, and possibly I would make some money on it. And I suppose I think a lot of the great songs have a touch of nostalgia about them.
Yes,
they focus on childhood a little bit.
Yeah, that minor key kind of yearning and the reflection and little touch of melancholy.
Yeah, that, you know, and again, one of the reasons that people love Last Christmas is because there is a touch of sadness to it.
Yes,
you know, I think as well, you know, MTV is about to shut up shop everywhere except America on New Year's Eve, but the music video lives on YouTube and elsewhere, and on Instagram, and it's still enormously popular. So I think, as well as a great tune that's with all those attributes I mentioned, it needs a very festive video as well, ideally with some snow. I mean, East 17's Stay Another Day was actually not about Christmas at all, but because there are the kind of sleigh bell sound and the video has that winter scene, we associate it with Christmas. So I think those components are vital. I'd love to see somebody attempt it again, but it feels that we've moved to an era where people, unless we can get people excited about the charts again, it's very difficult to kind of generate that kind of excitement. I mean, I took a look at the sort of list of UK number ones for 2025, and even though I write about music, half of them I'm going, what was that again? It's like, oh yeah, that's what that was. It just, they don't register. So many of them don't. And there are loads of them. And people don't care about how things used to climb up the chart and maybe just slip, or like, you know, the idea for years that Last Christmas was number 2 and it didn't quite for years attain that top spot. Unfortunately, people don't think like that anymore. But I would love to see that change, because it was an exciting time.
Yeah. So you spoke about Slade playing that song twice. Any other interesting Christmas song moments?
Well, just on that Slade song, it was written and recorded in roasting heat of New York that year, 1973. And again, we associate them with the kind of the garish outfits on Top of the Pops, but it was written in Manhattan and composed there. And it's so many of the classic Christmas songs were also recorded in summertime, because back then the music industry was very sluggish. Today it's quite nimble. You can release an album in a day with no warning, and some of the big stars do that. But in the past, there had to be budgets worked out, cycles of releases, and if you wanted a UK number one, and a UK number one is what we're all talking about here, even in Ireland. I mean, the domestic market doesn't really matter. It's what happened on the other side of the Irish Sea. They would have to think months and months in advance. There's another one that's intriguing, and that's Jonah Louis, and he often is cited as one of those kind of one-hit wonders. Actually, he was a two-hit wonder. He had 2 big songs, and he had a song, a kind of an anti-war song called Stop the Cavalry. And simply because there was a reference to Christmas, the record company thought this might make a good Christmas song, and it did. Just back to an earlier point, Katie, he is somebody who's been quite upfront about the fact that this particular song is responsible for half his lifetime earnings.
Oh.
So it you know, he effectively didn't have to work again as a result. So he is somebody who hasn't been coy about how much money he made. He's done well from it.
But ultimately, we are in the age of Spotify now. And you do wonder if a current artist was to have a pop at a Christmas song, it would seem they'd make a lot less money than they might have 10, 20, 30 years ago.
That's absolutely the case. No question about it. Physical sales pulled in so much more money. Steve Wall of The Stunning is one of the few artists who's actually gone public about how wretched the pay is, you know, from the Spotifys of this world, and not just Spotify, but the other streaming services as well. You're talking about a tiny fraction of a cent per listen. So you've got to have a huge amount of those to make anything resembling decent money. And even the globally celebrated artists, the ones, the Drakes of this world, the Weekends, who come top of the kind of global streaming charts, most of their money comes from touring.
Yes.
Or merchandise.
Merch.
Rather
It's all
than,
about the merch.
It is. It really is. And, you know, the likes of Beyonce is very clever on that front. But most of them are, and they have to be. They're on what's known as 360-degree deals, where everything is thought of. In the past, you could be an artist who decided, a bit like Enya, that I don't want to tour, but you could do very well from sales. Those days are very far in the past.
John, thank you so much for coming on.
Welcome.